courage or cowardice. Switzerland is thinking again about being neutral. And the country's arms industry wants changes to the law so it can export weapons more easily.
On n'a plus le droit de vendre des armes dans les pays en conflit.
What is the price of Swiss neutrality? Is it helping others by being a peacemaker, or simply helping itself? Neutrality, the Swiss say, doesn't mean they're not ready to defend themselves.
I can hit the cast and left beside me the same.
All this in a country where civilian gun ownership is one of the highest in the world.
Und dann hier, dann wird das Gewehr runtergedrückt und kann man die ganze Serie schießen. Also.
The cost of sitting on the sidelines. Welcome to Beyond Borders. For many Swiss people, shooting is not only a sport, but also a way of showing they're ready to defend their country. Competitors at this festival have their own semi-automatics and other weapons, encouraged to keep them after compulsory military service.
Der Schweizer relativ schnell und früh lernt mit Waffen umzugehen. Schon ganz früh im Kindesalter sehen die Kinder die Waffen und haben einen ganz anderen Bezug zu einer Waffe. Also das ist nicht etwas, wo man das Gefühl hat, oh je, sehr gefährlich und so weiter, sondern man weiß, das ist ein Teil von der Tradition.
And if they have to fire those weapons in anger, it could be because, as a soldier rather surprisingly tells us, the country's military is not up to the job.
We right now have some problems with material like tanks, vehicles, systems who will die out because they're so old. And right now we are already taking old system apart to maintain the systems we have right now. Or we have to be at four people, 4 soldiers who will be trained at one light machine gun. We have to share all the time all the different material. We already share a lot of material and equipment with each others.
But if the army doesn't have the right equipment,
we have to live with the consequences.
A former president of the Swiss National Council, who's running the shooting festival, says current rules on neutrality do not mean indifference to world events. He points out that Switzerland's imposing sanctions on Russia, along with the European Union, which would not be allowed if the neutrality rules are tightened. And the Swiss people vote on this with a referendum in September 2026. As for the state of the country's military, we've just spoken to a soldier who tells us the army is falling apart with tanks and weapons, and if there was an invasion, it would be very difficult to defend Switzerland.
We need more investments in weapons, in the security. That's my opinion too. That's a reality, but it's not a reality only in Switzerland. It's a reality in a lot of countries in Europe. But at the end we have to take priorities. But it's clearly that the army wants always more. If no, they wouldn't do the job.
The one question I have, having spoken to people over quite a long time, is how can you export weapons to countries and yet still remain neutral?
Yeah, that's the big question that we have. But at the end, it's always a difficult question between strict neutrality and between to give more possibilities to our enterprises in the army sector.
Just went like that. It's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act, and Switzerland normally is good on balancing acts.
Switzerland hasn't been involved in a foreign war for more than 200 years, but it hasn't always been as tranquil as it is today. 500 years ago, this castle was stormed and burned by local people who were worried that it had become a citadel for a powerful foreign force.
Angriff! St. Vincent! Blockiert! Verwehrt!
Swiss mercenaries dominated European battlefields for centuries, revolutionizing the way that wars were fought. But some marching movements have certainly changed. This event is billed as a trucker festival, but is more country stomp meets hay bales and horsepower.
Morgen.
Here we find a stand where they're explaining the work of the country's international peacekeeping force. They're currently helping international missions in Korea, Kosovo, Bosnia and the Middle East, as well as across Asia and Africa. The work may still be allowed, even if the new neutrality law is passed. As an engineer, a digger driver, this soldier tells me, he worked to make places that had been mined safe again and clear other munitions that had been left behind after conflict. Yes, he says, he was armed, but that was only for self-defense.
Da ist einfach das Problem, dass
These activists want no army at all. They're also worried about what's called the War Material Act, which would see rules on arms sold to foreign countries further relaxed, despite Swiss weapons exports already having gone up by 50% in 2025. The Swiss will vote on this in another referendum soon after the neutrality issue is decided.
There shouldn't be any profit with war or with weapons and with death, essentially.
If you go to the parliament, the lobby for the weapons industry is very strong.
I think they want to have the cake and eat it too, because they want to be neutral and saying we don't have anything to do with that, but we also want to profit.
Do the two things get tied together? The vote on neutrality and the war materials issue. Do they join up?
Yes, absolutely, because it's the right that wanted those two things, neutrality vote and war material export. And they say we have to be absolutely neutral, but they also want us to be able to send guns to other countries, so that doesn't really fit together. I think it's a huge hypocrisy that Switzerland always say we are le pays des droits de l'homme, les conventions de Genève, for example, and at the same moment we just send war material to countries, and those materials are always used against the civil, the population.
At the military base hosting the shooting festival is one of the Swiss weapons manufacturers that's pushing hard for the War Material Act to become law.
Et l'avantage de ces armes, c'est qu'ils prennent les deux chargeurs, le chargeur suisse et le chargeur OTAN. On n'a plus le droit de vendre des armes dans les pays en conflit.
Oui, mais c'est très difficile de savoir qui sont les pays qui sont dans les conflits aux étrangers.
Oui, mais ça dépend pas de moi, mais au-dessus, ils le savent.
The Swiss stock answer as to why there has to be a strong weapons industry in the country is that if there's an attack, it can't take for granted that help would come from anyone outside. It is a kind of bunker mentality, and there's plenty of that here in real concrete form. What do you call it?
A Luftschutzkeller.
A basement room in this house where a family could be safe.
Oh, it's heavy, really heavy. It's thick like that.
Wow.
See that? No, that's massive.
Look at that. So you would come down here.
That's the idea. In case of real danger, is this one. You know, it's a thing that has to be closed.
Yeah.
In case of emergency. And this one makes sure that we have ventilation inside and that we have air inside.
And at the moment you've got, well, just sports equipment mostly.
It's sports equipment, it's, you know, suitcases that we don't need at the moment, and clothes and whatsoever. We have to make sure that it can be used.
So you have to check it?
Yeah, we have to check it. The last check by the authority was about 3 years ago.
There are said to be enough bunkers in the country for every man, woman and child if there's trouble. They're celebrating 20 years of this one being privately owned. It was built during the Second World War as an army lookout post. A little work and it could be a shelter if needed.
Jetzt im Moment ist das sicher nicht auf einem Niveau, wo man sagen kann, der Bunker ist gasdicht, atomarer Staub ist dicht. Ist sicher, man ist beschusssicher unter dem Boden, man kann Infrastruktur haben, wo man kochen kann, man kann schlafen, es hat Wasserreservoir.
Deep inside a Swiss mountainside with a village on the plain below, an old army bunker, they would have been behind here, the soldiers, firing at anybody trying to attack them. They would have stood behind this great big steel door, poking explosives, grenades perhaps, through that hole. 1 kilometre of tunnels down here. It is 9 degrees where we are, it is 31 degrees above. It is a different world. It was in use until the end of the Cold War. These decommissioned weapons are kept in a locked storeroom.
Den Einzelschuss schießt man mit der Mittelstütze. Das Seriefeuer schießt man vorne. Und dann hier, dann wird das Gewehr hinuntergedrückt und kann man die ganze Serie schießen. Also.
How many people could be protected here?
Hier haben wir 80 Mann, oder? Also man kann alle festigen, die man hier hat. Das wären dann vielleicht etwa 2'000–3'000 Mann.
There's a hole in another mountainside, so you don't have to arrive at this bunker on foot. "11 kilometers of tunnels. Again, it's a bunker that's privately owned and is described as an artillery fortress able to house 600 soldiers.
The Swiss army built 22,000 bunkers. That's one of the reasons why Hitler never came, because the entry price was too high.
If there's an invasion, if Switzerland is bombed, the owner says it's just for him and his family.
My family, that's right.
And the town?
Well, no, I mean, we don't want to have too many people in here. They're 85 meters under the rock now. It was all built in the Cold War.
So it would pull all the poison?
They wanted to make the place nuclear attack proof. Safest place in the world right now.
Must have cost you a fortune, hasn't it?
Yeah, I got a lot of money. It's a hobby, you know. People collect Lamborghinis. I got a fortress, you know.
Wow, this is dark. This is dark. Are you proud of Switzerland's neutrality?
Well, yeah. I hope we're going to keep it. Looks like we're going to lose it if we join the EU, you know. And it took 10 soldiers to man a cannon. This thing is 48 kilograms. I can hit the Kersten in Liechtenstein with this thing.
In the village where we saw the basement bunker, the question of neutrality is something that most seem to have thought about.
Es ist sehr schwierig, heute neutral zu sein. Man sieht das, Schweden musste die Neutralität aufgeben, weil es sind heute auf der Welt neue Gefahren da.
Ich habe das Gefühl, wir sind jetzt klein. Also wenn es wirklich wiederum ginge, die Schweiz wirklich zu verteidigen, wäre unsere Armee wahrscheinlich sowieso machtlos.
Ich hoffe, wir können es noch lange beibehalten. Ja. Bei den heute extremen Meinungen wird es sehr schwieriger.
It's a topic too on the streets of the capital Bern.
Dass wir stets unparteiisch sein, eben, dass wir neutral sind, zwischen den Polen können vermitteln. Und wichtig ist, dass wir dabei unsere Freiheit im Vordergrund haben.
Es ist ein bisschen ein zweischneidiges Schwert. Einerseits sind wir halt, leben wir in einer kriegerischen Welt, oder? Wir sind keine Pazifisten. Also ich glaube, man muss da ein bisschen auch einen Mittelweg gehen. Wir brauchen Waffenindustrie, auch eigene. Und die muss man auch hin und wieder halt an einen problematischen Ort können verkaufen.
A point made to us many times is that with Switzerland neutral, it can stand apart and bring warring parties together. But can it do that if it's selling more and more weapons abroad?
If you would describe neutrality as it is now in Switzerland, it has 4 characteristics. It's permanent, it's backed by military force, it's internationally recognized, and it is deeply rooted in Swiss history and identity. But it is an instrument, it is a tool that Switzerland uses in order to pursue its objectives of prosperity, of peace, of sustainability.
2025 Swiss arms exports, weapons exports, were around $1.25 billion. It had gone up considerably from the year before. So there's a market there. And with more and more countries needing more and more weapons because it's a dangerous world, it would make sense for Switzerland from a profit point of view to exploit that. Is that what's being done?
Well, I think we have to understand the Swiss economy a little bit better. I think the weapons exports are not critical for the Swiss economy. So the interest in having a weapons industry is not the economy. That's a security benefit. Because if you would engage in a war and you don't have your own weapons industry, that puts you in a much more difficult situation.
How does it benefit Switzerland's security to sell tear gas to the United States that is used in the suppression of immigrant riots in Minneapolis and sell assault rifles to Saudi Arabia?
Well, I do not know these specific cases, but both cases are popular.
The immigrant riots,
yes.
Swiss tear gas was used in the ICE suppression of these riots in Minneapolis.
Every country is exporting products who are sometimes used in a nice manner, sometimes in a less nice manner.
Are you saying you have rules,
yes,
which you would like to see implemented, but you have no way of absolutely ascertaining that the people you sell these to aren't rule breakers themselves?
If you could impose 100% respect of rules, then you wouldn't have murder, you wouldn't have any traffic incidents. What you can do as a state to undertake the maximum efforts, all your efforts, a strict due diligence applied to prevent that. And I think Switzerland undertakes really the measures to prevent that these arms are ending up in a conflict.
The days of Swiss mercenary might are being showcased in the grounds of this museum. And it's here that we meet a man who's just spent 2 years making a film about Switzerland's position on neutrality. He says he found a sense of we're better because we're neutral.
To me, neutrality now is a trademark. This is the only thing we have. It's a kind of a soft power for Switzerland, but nobody has a definition, a strict definition of it. And probably that's the beauty of it. But now it became too broad, I would say. We still are playing with the rules that we used to play, and now we need to redefine it. Can you export arms? Can you make some profits about arms and still be neutral? Can you put some sanctions regarding some countries and remain neutral? That's the kind of question that we need to address. And to me, it's not possible to be neutral. Otherwise, we could have invited Hitler to negotiate during the Second World War at the same level as the Allies. So it's not possible to be neutral.
Madi's documentary features a meeting of pro-Swiss, a right-wing group backing the changes to neutrality laws.
Leider hat der Bundesrat mit der Teilnahme an Sanktionen gegen Russland die Schweizer Neutralität mit Füßen getreten und unserer Glaubwürdigkeit sehr geschadet. Wenn dieser fatale Schmusekurs gegenüber der NATO weitergehen sollte, riskiert die Schweiz gar, direkt in eine militärische Konfrontation, gegebenenfalls durch Entsendung von Truppen, eingebunden zu werden. Das dürfen wir keinesfalls zulassen.
We watch this with the organisation's vice president, who was behind the law which forbids face coverings in public, called the burqa ban. He says his country's too involved in the affairs of other countries and needs to go back to neutrality as it used to be.
Sie hat 200 Jahre lang überleben, genau mit der Neutralität, mit der klaren, immerwährenden, integralen, bewaffneten Neutralität. Und ich bin überzeugt, dass das ein Volkssystem ist von unserem Land.
What are your fears for Switzerland?
Da besteht Gefahr, dass die Politik, die jetzt im Moment falsch läuft, weitergezogen wird und wir sehr schnell in der NATO sind. Und in der EU natürlich. Und da ist Neutralität weg. Und die Freiheit ist auch weg vom Land. Unabhängigkeit ist weg.
On Lake Geneva, there's a man with completely the opposite view.
We saw that somehow the far right were taking over the discussion on what neutrality is. They're trying to say it means cooperation with nobody, sanctions against nobody. So whatever happens, independent of which type of war, we just do nothing, say nothing, and make business with everyone.
And that's not just about being peaceful, is it? That's sometimes about sort of saying, this way I look after myself.
Yes, but what triggered us most is that they were saying that this is the traditional neutrality, and it's not. They made out of it some sort of a religion, and now they're believers and not clear-thinking people.
Two different versions of neutrality then to be voted on. One that says, yes, we will have armed forces, but we will look out only for ourselves. And one that says our neutrality serves a purpose for others too, and we should be able to change depending on what's happening in the world.
What role should Switzerland play? Should it ally itself with one bloc against the other? Or should it offer to the world a platform which could contribute to peace? We are a small economy compared to the US or the UK, but we're a trusted country. And that's one of our cards. But on the other hand, you keep your credibility. Because if you want all the parties to come to the negotiating table, they need to trust the mediator. You are not neutral because you declare that you're neutral. You're only neutral when the rest of the world perceive you or believe that you're neutral. And that's why we should be extremely careful, and that's why it's in a very, very, very difficult game to play.
Perhaps it's all a case of too much introspection, but there are some for whom this matters on a daily basis. In this case, the Ukrainian and Palestinian diaspora. Conflict back home is a never-ending concern.
People experience horrible things and you can do nothing.
Do you have a view on whether Switzerland should be more involved in helping with the conflict there?
I don't think that they want not to be involved. You know, they help us a lot. They always keep in mind that I'm in a country of people who don't owe me anything, and yet they opened the houses for us, they invited us, and it would be ungrateful to expect that people owe us anything.
From one or other way, you need to take sides. Even when you say that you are neutral, you are still taking a side, right? One thing that I appreciate, for example, with Swiss, that they don't take neutrality from the perspective of indifference or from an emotional swing. And they do change their minds in terms of also level of neutrality, what conflicts in what way they cover.
Die Fahne von Ukraine aufgehängt überall, jede Kulturinstitution. Als 7. Oktober passiert ist, habe ich sie konfrontiert damit. Ein schweigende Lämmer. Wenn sie sehen, zum Beispiel, dass Genozid passiert, ja, kein Wort darüber reden. Das ist für mich keine Neutralität.
Wenn es darum geht, ob Frauen noch abgeschlachtet werden, Kinder kein Essen bekommen und wegen dem verhungern Menschen in den miserabelsten Umständen müssen, um zu kämpfen, überleben. Dann, wenn man sich da überhaupt noch die Frage stellt, dass man, ob man noch neutral darf bleiben, ist das für mich nur noch eine lächerliche Sache.
Es ist politisch, dass in Köpfen von vielen
entscheidet und nicht das Wort, das sagt Neutralität.
Neutralität ist für mich moralische Neutralität. Ich muss eine moralische Haltung haben. Mit dem gleichen Elendmasse zwischen das Elend von Ukraine und das Elend von den Palästinensern.
Austria, Ireland, Costa Rica, Turkmenistan, Liechtenstein, Andorra, and quite a few others are all neutral to some extent, and at times the United States has been too. Switzerland is not alone. But claiming to be neutral at the same time as wanting to sell more guns and tanks abroad is what some observers find hard to reconcile. It is certainly food for thought.